Here's today's rant. The target that the alt-right is aiming for when they try to indoctrinate people is almost always straight, white, young teenage boys who are still virgins and they're already on the verge of being incels and they don't even know it. So, I can say, with quite a bit of certainty, most teenage boys want to fuck a girl, but they can't, for one reason or another. And usually, they blame it on women. So a lot of teenage boys, they're mostly gamers, and they want to have sex, but no girls want to do it with them, and they feel like all their peers are having sex, and so they're already on the edge of inceldom. It's why they're so prone to hate feminism, because they think, oh, feminism's trying to invade their video games, and it's trying to tell them that they're evil and they're rapists, even though they've never even had sex before, and they feel like the world's against them. They feel like every time a movie comes out with, like, feminist themes, like it's an attack on them. I understand it. I was there. I was there at one point in my life. And they'll usually get pulled down the rabbit hole of the incel community. The problem is, the incel community and the alt-right community aren't that far apart, and it's really easy, and they overlap in a lot of parts. And so basically, you see that the content that radicalizes people into the alt-right, that's on YouTube and just online in general, it's so obviously targeted at teenagers. And not just any type of teenager, your chud gamer bro teenagers. The one that, like a lot of them utilize, like, flashing lights and, like, zooms. Like, fuck, can I do one right now? I guess I can, like, you know, the comedic zoom for comedy, I guess. Like, the way that they function, it's targeted at these groups, the people who are already so vulnerable to falling down that rabbit hole because of, like, their own life experiences. And it may sound like a big, like, incline to go from just being like, oh man, I don't like feminism in my video games because I can't get laid, to murder brown people and shoot up a mosque. You know, it's a pretty big escalation. I don't disagree, but that's how it is. That's how people are radicalized to this. And there's a few things that go into this, and ContraPoints in the video we're watching right now really did cover this. I did feel like when I was younger, when I was a teenager, and when I was just sort of going down the rabbit hole, or shortly before, I did kind of feel a sting whenever me, like a 16-year-old boy, was walking down the street and women would, like, cross the street or, like, want to stay away from me because they think I might, like, lash out and rape them at any second. Like, obviously that's hyperbolic, but that's what it felt like at the time. It stung. Nowadays, I don't really care. Just kind of accept the fact that, yeah, most women are afraid they're going to get raped. It happens scarily often, so I don't blame them for being cautious. I don't take it personally. But back then, I just got really, really nervous about it. And even then, at the time, like, I was able to date. Like, I had girlfriends when I was younger, but getting laid was a lot harder for a variety of reasons. So I was like one of those dudes who's like, God, especially because I worked a job before most people probably do. I worked a job when I was 15, right as I was turning 16. It's legal in my state. So my coworkers at my job were all the age I am now, and I was 15 going on 16. So they were all getting laid, getting drunk, and partying, and they were my peers, and so I felt like I'm not living up to that. I started to fall down that incel-ish rabbit hole a little bit. The only thing that kept me from really being an incel is, and I think you'll all agree, I'm quite above average looking. Pretty damn good jawline, nice chin, good facial proportions. My skin was arguably a lot better looking back then than it is now, because I was out in the sun all day being a lifeguard, and that kind of made my skin look better. Like, I was good looking, and that kept me from being an incel. I didn't really fall for, like, the Chad jawline memes, or the what is it, like 2 centimeters of bone? Is that the meme that the incels spread? Like, I didn't fall down that rabbit hole necessarily. But I did kind of get that feeling that was like, I should be having sex and partying, but I'm not. It must be the women's fault. It's a really strange phenomenon. And I feel like it's a problem. And that's what I love so much about ContraPoints, because she like knows this. She's aware of this phenomenon, especially now that Faraday Speaks made his video about his like descent down the alt-right rabbit hole, and then I made mine. She's aware of it, and she brings it up quite a bit in her videos, and I fucking love it. I do have a Chad jawline, like, very defined, especially here. If I move the thing, very defined jawline. See, you can trace it. Very defined. Very good jawline. I'm very proud of it. But yeah, basically, that's probably going to be the end of the rant. I mean, my main point of this is that, like, you shouldn't necessarily feel bad for them, like, feel bad for the Chud Gamer Bros, but I think it's still important to understand why they fall down this rabbit hole in the first place, and how they are, like, the target of this reactionary movement, and the kind of methods they use to target them, saying things like, hey, you can't get laid? Well, it's the femoids' fault. And guess what? They're trying to invade your video games. The one pastime that you have separate from the femoids, they're trying to invade it. Feminism's trying to ruin your video games. And then that's usually where it starts for a lot of people. I don't know. It's really fucking annoying, and I hate it, but I think it's important to acknowledge that this is the case.